It's May 25th, 2018. Hello, Cyclopeans. Let's get right to the news. Sci-fi, fantasy, and horror goodness. Video games, mobile video games in particular, the 7 Deadly Sins anime is getting a new game for smartphones, and that's yet another anime making the jump to smartphone for a video game. It's going to be pretty cool to see what other ones they bring in there. And this anime gets bigger and bigger, and is making it's just making an onslaught in America. You're seeing a lot more anime come here, and of course the smartphone games are a lot of fun too. Detroit Become Human video game. There's a walkthrough. You can click on this link and see the walkthrough. It looks like it's about it's a sci-fi game with I think it's an AI that becomes aware, and they're trying to deal with what to do with robots that can think for themselves. And click on that to see the whole story and whether something you want to buy or not. Magic the Gathering strategy article. Rules are made to be broken. This is going to teach you deviating from standard rules. That's coming out of TCG Player. And yes, I do want to let everybody know that I do have friends and family over in that company, and it's okay. I'm not trying to just push them because of that. I generally like genuinely like the company. It's a great little organization. And if you're into trading cards and trading card games, you will like the site. TCGplayer.com, and look that up on Google. Godzilla fans, Godzilla King of the Monsters director has tweeted an image of Monster Zero, or if I'm saying this right, King Ghidorah. And so this is kind of cool because they've been talking about this Monster Zero now. Godzilla's been in the news a lot lately, and they're getting ready. They're dropping a lot of trial balloons out there to see how this thing's going to work, and little hints. And so we know Monster Zero's all but confirmed now. Actually confirmed, because that's the director. So we know Monster Zero will be coming. It's going to be really cool to see that fight. Game of Thrones fans, the final scene for Emilia Clarke's character has been filmed, and she's got an odd reaction to it, which has got a lot of sites in a minor uproar for whatever reason. I'm going to let you click and find out, but I wouldn't be too worried about it because the Game of Thrones series is not over as long as Martin writes that last book. If he would just get moving on it, we could get this, another season going, but who knows when he's ever going to drop it. So if you're interested to see why Emilia Clarke's reaction is getting so much press about filming her last scene, do click on that link. The Black Panther 2 news continues to get more interesting, with Donald Glover and Michael B. Jordan rumored to be in talks for the movie, so that'll be a great pairing. And the first one did so well, and it's no doubt the second one's going to be huge too. And I'm glad to see that Marvel gets right to work on the second movie and the third. They don't waste time between movies generally, and I wish DC would get moving like that, because I don't know what the problem is. It was 2 years ago they capitalized on Harley Quinn, with her movie there, to $1 billion. And they have done nothing since. And I don't know what the heck they're fooling around with over there. And this isn't meant just to beat up on DC. It's not a Marvel versus DC fight. I'm not into that. I've told you that previously. And I want to make that very clear, because I'm happy with all the different superheroes and characters. But I just don't know what DC is doing, fooling around, waiting 2 years. And now we're going to be 3. And God knows how much longer before we see Harley Quinn on the screen again. So I don't know what they're up to. At any rate, Marvel's not wasting any time, and they're back with Black Panther 2. The Unwilling horror film is got a review, and that's an interesting film. It's about a family that's called together for somebody's died, and there's a reading of the will, and they're all like waiting to see what goodies they're going to get. And instead of getting goodies handed to them, it's in a box. A Lovecraftian style box that's brought out and opened up, and it ties in with one of the characters had an obsessive OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and somehow this whole thing ties in, and it looks like what's going to wind up happening is they're all going to have to fight to the death to get their inheritance, which you can be sure is not going to be good in the end, especially if there's anything Lovecraftian about it. So looking forward to seeing this film. And gamers, again, back to games. Apple has rejected the Steam Link iOS app. In other words, it looked like Steam was going to have a special app for the smartphone, the iPhone rather, and Apple doesn't want to do it all of a sudden. That's suddenly out of nowhere. I don't know what happened, but unfortunately, it looks like that's on hold for now. More video game news. Yakuza 3. If you're interested in that game, I've got a link to an extended look for the PS4. And for you Netflix people, which is just about all of us, there's a link here for the best TV shows and movies coming to Netflix for June. And there's a lot of really good stuff out from The Last Jedi to Thor Ragnarok to a ton of different movies. Do click on that and see what's coming. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. E3 is about to hit, or is hitting now, and it's going to be very exciting. And tons and tons and tons of video game news. There's a link here you can click on to the E3 conference schedule and live streams. Definitely worth your time. And you can keep up with the 8,000 million games that are going to be coming out. Back to horror really quick. Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 3 on digital coming out today. And Blu-ray and DVD August 21st. Do keep an eye out for that Blu-ray and DVD if you're an Evil Dead fan, because I'm sure it's going to be packed with goodies. They'll probably have an extra DVD featurette and behind the scenes and background and booklets and all kinds of cool stuff. And it's a darn shame that series ended so fast. It seemed like it was zipping right along, and then all of a sudden it was like, it's done. Okay, I want to retire. And here comes the hope that one of the side characters will take over and keep the series going. Don't know. And by the way, I just want to let you all know that on another note, between canceled shows, The Expanse is going to be picked up by Netflix. That's the word right now. I don't have a guarantee on it, but I'm almost positive. I'm not afraid to report that, because I'm sure the heads over at Netflix, who are not dummies, Netflix has done a lot of things really right. And I'm sure they took one look at that Expanse and said, give it to us. We'll pay whatever we got to get, because that's got a huge following. And I'm telling you, that's one of the biggest, of all the links I put out with Sci-Clops, that's probably the top 10 or 15, in the top 10 or 15 of the most clicks I've ever had. I just put out, I remember, and I didn't even know what it was. I was like covering The Expanse, and I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool. And I put it up with a trailer, and I was like, okay, maybe there's some fans out there. Next thing I know, it's just the clicks are going, through the roof. And I was like, what is this? And then I started watching it. I told you in previous podcasts, I got hooked, and I got to catch the last 2 episodes that came out. I'm 2 Wednesdays behind right now. It comes out every Wednesday, and I'm just absolutely hooked. I've lost so much sleep over this series. It's killing me. I'm dreading going back to it, because I know I'm going to be up all night watching the darn thing. It's that good. Do watch The Expanse if you have a chance. It's on Sci-Fi. And Amazon Prime has it too. And of course it got canceled because of some kind of rights where it had to be live rights weren't bringing enough people. But I think everybody was watching the reruns, and something happened. I don't know. I'm not going to it doesn't really matter. The point is that it got canceled, and I knew the audience would go in an uproar, and they did, and somebody's picked it up, and it looks like it's going to be Netflix. Great news there. We'll keep you posted as we find out more. Fortnite fans, top 5 changes and updates coming to Fortnite. There's a link there, and you can click on that. The thing with Fortnite is really interesting, just like updates every day on Fortnite. Every single time I click on video game sites, it's like, Fortnite dropping this today. Like, okay, if you're a Fortnite player, you're having a great time. I mean, they're not wasting any time on Fortnite. They're giving you something all the time, something new. Comics. Bendis's final Invincible Iron Man ending is going to be explained. I don't know what happened there. I'm not following that, but I love Iron Man. Of course, I'm an X-Men person right now. I'm reading all those comics. I'm reading all the Uncanny X-Men, and haven't had time to read Invincible Iron Man. But there's something going on with the ending for those of you reading it, and it's going to explain it for you instead. This is interesting news. As we had reported, I think I reported previously, there was a Star Wars theme park being built by Disney, and there's been a lot of news on it, and it's going to be huge. So Universal Studios has decided, hey, they're not going to be left in the dust. They're going to build a Star Trek land, and that's a rumor right now. And I'm betting that they do it, and they're just about. It's a big enough and small enough. It's a big enough thing that it would bring in a lot of people as an interesting attraction, but small enough that it's not Disney size. Disney, Star Wars, and this isn't a Star Wars versus Star Trek thing. Star Trek's been around a lot longer, but Star Wars I think is a lot bigger. And a lot of your little kids will be running all over the place with Star Wars, where you won't see that. You'll see a little bit older crowd for Star Trek, and there's nothing against Star Trek. I love Star Trek, but very interested they're going to have a Star Trek land. But ultimately, what do we care? Let's go to both. Let's go to Star Trek land and the Star Wars theme park. So a great win for us, no matter what happens. Daniel Craig's James Bond 25 now has an official release date. I grew up with Bond. I've seen Bond films since I was a teeny tiny kid. My dad used to bring me to the theater. You know, it's incredible if you think of the kind of things that are going on in Bond films. And I've seen just about every Bond film. I think I have seen them all. And so number 25 is coming out with an official release date. Normally I cover sci-fi, fantasy, and horror only, but I couldn't resist putting in some news about Daniel Craig, James Bond 25. So there you go, you James Bond fans. Back to video games really quick. Red Dead Redemption 2 has got a release date. I thought I saw that in the past, a while back, so I don't know why that's being re-reported. But there's more info on the game as well, and that's going to be huge when that comes out. That's gonna drop like a bomb, and I'm sure that's going to be one of the big things you're going to see E3 too. Spider-Man fans, this is interesting. The next movie, the Spider-Man Homecoming 2, we talked that Mysterio was coming, but now they're saying it's going to be the Sinister Six and Mysterio's ally, whatever that means. So click on that link to see if you can dredge a few clues out of that article. And that's over at, and you can click on the link, that's over at express.com, the UK paper, the Express. You know what? Actually, it's not. I got to fix that. I'm just happened to click on that, and we will be fixing that before we send this out to you. The Star Wars cartoon Disney doesn't want you to see. Apparently, they got some weird cartoon that they made. I don't know what it's about. Do check it out if you're a Star Wars fan. It sounds like a lot of fun. It can't be any worse than the Christmas special. Disney also reporting they're making an animated film. Another one. I know we've been talking about some of the CGI films coming out. There's going to be a Dragon Empire film coming out, animated. I would like to see Disney do more animated films leaning towards an older crowd. I think it would be really cool, and I wish they would do more of that. But they seem to know that their bread is buttered with the babies, and the mothers bringing in the kids to stuff like, you know, the oh God, I can't even think. All those, you know, the younger crowd that they put one of those animated films out, like they make $1 billion in a week, and then of course they sell all the videos and the toys and everything. But I wish they'd make a few ones for the older crowd like me, and I'm hoping this Dragon Empire will be it. Anyway, heading over to Wonder Woman. Diana will be in a new Battle Gear costume for Wonder Woman 2. No surprise there. You'd be expecting a new costume and some new stuff, you know, to keep the movie fresh. So that's going to be really exciting. I would have liked to see more on that. I don't know. It seems like they're taking a little bit longer. But I guess that's on time. It's not like that. The Harley Quinn mess, which, you know, you haven't seen anything from Harley Quinn. I'm going to complain about this again. I don't know what's taking DC so darn long with some of their movies, but you know, I love DC, I love Marvel, but I wish DC would move a little faster on some of their stuff, especially the Harley Quinn thing, which was massive. It had $1 billion come in, you know, with that movie a couple years ago, and yet you haven't seen a thing about it since. So who knows what the heck's going on there. Video game. This is a big weekend for video game sales and tech sales and, well, sales on just about everything if you're in America. This is Memorial Day weekend, so watch for Amazon and ThinkGeek and all those places. And GOG and Steam, both video game companies, they got big weekend deals coming in, you know, up to 90% off over at GOG, and I've seen as high as 75% off over at Steam. So you can go pick yourself up some new games over there. And if you're playing Overwatch, this is a cool thing. I love Overwatch. And there's this little article, which I had to laugh. I had to put this up. How hiring a pro Overwatch coach made me a better player. How I emptied my bank account to pay a guy to coach me playing Overwatch because I had nothing better to do with my money. My God, I can't imagine what that must have cost. Imagine if you're a pro Overwatch coach. That must be an interesting job. Love to see, you know, what do you do for your day? You know, you're basically farming yourself out to Overwatch junkies who have more money than brains. So I'm sorry, I'm just, you know, I just don't, just play the game. I don't know why you want to, unless you're getting ready to compete. If you're going to compete, I can totally understand. But you know, if you're just playing, I guess if you play that heavily, I can't imagine paying somebody the same kind of money or more that I would pay for a chemistry tutor or a math tutor. But I bet it's a good job being a pro Overwatch coach. Or is it? Maybe you got to deal with all kinds of attitude from players. If you've heard of anything like that, do let me know in the comments. I've never heard of this before, and I got a real kick out of it. So I thought you'd like that article. Battlefield 5 has a disclaimer in the beginning, and they're talking about that, and it has to do with the fact that there's so many guns, and the current politically charged atmosphere in America with guns. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that. Just want to let you know there is talk about that disclaimer in Battlefield 5. In Vampire, the game, the horror game Vampire, Vampyr, 55 minutes of gameplay if you click on that link. So that's pretty cool. That's a nice, big, fat chunk of gameplay. You can get an idea what the game's about, whether you want to buy it or not. If you're going to be in New York City soon, and you like Broadway and you like Harry Potter, there's a link up on how to score $20 tickets, which is always a great thing. Always a way to get deals on these things. And this is a little link, then hopefully it can work to your favor. Maybe it will work and get $20 tickets. Back to Netflix really quick. Horror fans, be excited because there's a tidal wave of horror coming into Netflix for June, and I've got the link to all the list of all the horror films. So get ready, some great stuff coming in. Board games. Got a little review from BoardGameGeek.com, a great site. These guys do a really good job at covering board games with pictures and details and rules, and I think they even put the cost down. And if it turns out that it's a Kickstarter, they talk about that. This is called the 5-Minute Dungeon. Sounds like a lot of fun. Do click on it if you're looking for a new game to play. Horror film The Lodgers is now going to get a home video release and more. We've covered that on Sci-Clops in the past. I'm pretty excited about that. It looks really good. It's about a brother and sister. If I've got the story right, they're the last in their family, and they live in this old house, and there's a curse on them. And they can't leave the house for whatever reason or something. Either they die or they turn into a monster, or the monster comes or whatever. And the house is crumbling around them. And if I'm right, the sister falls in love with somebody who drops by and wants to run away with them. And the brother realizes that, this is going to bring the curse down on their heads. And so it becomes a complicated mess. So it's very interesting looking movie. And of course, if it's going to be a home video release, and maybe they'll do DVD and Blu-ray, they'll add a whole bunch of features to it. Not for the home video, but at least for the DVD and Blu-ray, which is kind of cool there. Big news in the Star Wars front. Star Wars fans, if you have not already heard, and I hope you haven't, I hope I'm breaking this to you for the first time because it's exciting. Grand Admiral Thrawn is probably going to show up in Episode 9. That's all I'm going to say. You can click on the link and see for yourself. This looks like not certain yet, but that's what they're saying. In Solo, a Star Wars story, Woody Harrelson's Beckett is going to get a Star Wars prequel comic. So that'll be kind of cool to find out where he came from. And jumping over to comics again, remember Ironheart, Riri Williams? Boy, that was like a year ago. That was all over the place. It was going to be the next big thing in comics. Iron Man was going to retire and she was going to take over and blah, blah, blah. Haven't heard a thing since. Well, she's getting a new design, which makes me wonder if they put it out, it didn't do so well, so they're re-putting it out under a new design. I'm not being negative or bitter about it. I'm just saying it's kind of bummed because I thought this was going to be a really big deal. I'd seen an awful lot about Riri Williams. At any rate, she's getting a new design. Let's see how this works, this latest incarnation. And finally, we're going over to Daredevil. There's somebody picked up a memorandum out of the costume department which confirms Bullseye for season 3. I thought we knew that was going to happen already, but now we've got confirmation of the confirmation and literally written down. So Bullseye's coming, Daredevil fans. And by the way, I think if one more thing on that Netflix, I think Luke Cage drops this month too, so that's going to be really exciting for June. And or drops for June because this is May, so I'm looking forward to that. Luke Cage was pretty darn good, very dark, and the bad guys were really nasty in that. And in this one, he's letting everybody know he's Luke Cage, and he's basically strutting around the whole Harlem area like I'm Luke Cage, and everybody knows it, and I'm kicking butt. And it's going to be interesting to see how he has to deal with that, being an outed superhero. Last but not least, I'm going to really fast cover the Uncanny X-Men, which I'm reading. I last left you, I think, at about 275. And I was saying that, of course, I read all the way from the 60s. I read through the 70s issues. I read through the 80s. And just as they were approaching the 90s, the Starjammers were back, and Professor X had been gone, and Rogue was missing, or presumed dead, but she's never dead. And it was a big change up in the superhero carousel that goes around and around. Jean Grey was kind of back. Was she? And then she was, she had been dead, but then it was Scott's new wife was her, but she really wasn't her. She was somebody else, and there was a bunch of things going on, and I loved it, but it was a little confusing. It was like you could see like we were at the end of one decade, and there was kind of a shifting going on, and we were starting in another decade, and I was kind of like, you had to slow down reading. You had to read carefully because there's a lot of characters coming and going. And the Starjammers are in here, and the Shi'ar, and there's all this big fights going on. And, Magneto had taken over at one point. I think he was running X Factor. And a lot of Khazar, they're in the Savage Lands. Khazar is all over the place. Nick Fury's showing up once in a while. Just a lot of people showing up. And it was a little intense. And it looks like, and of course, now we have the introduction of Gambit, who's arrived. So I'm in about 1991 summer right now, and it's back online again. No complaint the whole time. It's just, you were going along, and then you hit the end of the decade, it was like, ooh, I got to sit back here and reread this a little bit and make sure I don't get lost. And then they seem to have kind of gotten their orientation again. They're flying right out into the 90s. So here comes the 90s version. It's really cool. Rogue's back, Gambit's back, Wolverine's meaner than ever. Professor X is running the show, or he's going to run the show again. We're fighting, oh dear, a whole bunch of different bad guys. It's really interesting because they've pulled all the bad guys out at once, and there's like a bad guy on every continent and in other planes of existence, and everybody's trying to take down the X-Men, and they can't. So it's I highly recommend it. I don't want to give too much away, but you can read all these at let me give you the site once more. readcomiconline.to, like two. And there's a million comics up there, and they're all free. And if you read on PC, it's great because you can really get a good screen. And the comics are easy to read. At least the X-Men are. I don't know about all the others. I just read all the. I also read, by the way, really quick, last thing, and I promise I'll end this. I read all the X-23 comics, and they're all up there too. After because I loved Logan, I thought it was the best Marvel movie ever, and I will not back down from that. I think that the greatest Marvel movie ever made was Logan, and X-23 really floored me. And this is the story. All the comics for X-23 are up there on readcomiconline.to. Excellent stuff. Marjorie Liu, I was kind of. She took X-23 to a different direction where she really made her incredibly dark, a really horrible background that she went through. And it was kind of hard to read through at times. It was like, ooh, this is heavy. But that's why she's X-23. X-23 goes through a lot of hell and then comes out in the end, is vicious or nastier than Wolverine. And that's all I'm going to go through today. Do check those out if you want some comics to read for free. Who can give up on free? Anyway, we're done with that. I will see you again. Not sure if I'll have one out this weekend being Memorial Day, but we'll do our best. And if not, we'll see you in a day or 3 or 4 days. In the meanwhile, have a great weekend.